Terrible performance, terrible stadium, terrible experience. Good point. Hello, everybody. Welcome into the From the Firefly podcast, episode 56. My name is Callum. I will be a host as always. Hope we're all doing well. Everyone made it back from Kassam, which is tangentially, I think, part of Oxford, but somehow feels as if you're in a separate planet or a separate country or something, just a long, long way away from the rest of civilization out in a science park. On the far reaches of Oxford. It was a terrible game. I thought both sides were pretty dreadful. The referee was absolutely awful. The stadium security, I don't think it's security's fault. I think it's actually just the way um, in which it's sort of set up and the regulation that they have. But the seating was a complete disaster. I'm sure I'll have a moan about that later. The sight lines were terrible. It was all just a really, really, really naff away day in many ways. Um, but I came out of the Kassam for the first time. I think I've been there. Is that 4 times I've been there now? For the first time I've come out of there having not lost, which made it a little bit easier. Had a good day with my mates afterwards, which was nice. But God, that was a tough one to watch. Sky put that one at 12:30. Crikey. That was just a crime to make people watch that game of football. On a lunchtime kickoff. I don't know if I would have made it through 20 minutes if I hadn't been there. It was a genuinely horrific game of football to watch. I mean, we had 11 players out there. Was anybody more than the five? Is a serious question? It was genuinely that bad. Um, and it's hard to analyze because I think Nathan Jones kind of said it perfectly. We became the sort of team that they wanted to play against. We can't have over 50% of possession in games. We just do not have the players to do it, right? Maybe we'll get away with a 51-49 every once in a while, right? But we do not have the players to have the ball all the time. And I think we saw that. And I think some of the frustration that people had about midfielders and forwards players, which I'm sure we'll get to later, comes from that fact that they're not actually set up and they don't have the archetype to play that system. That's why I've banged on about Jordan Clark on this podcast and privately with friends, is that I think you need a player like that, someone who can kind of hold the ball and play the ball around. The only player we really have, to be 100% fair to Connor Coventry, I think in the right setup he could do it. I think Connor Cody can do it in the right, in the right setup as well. But really, it's Joe Rankin Costello and not really anybody else that can play that sort of system. Again, outside of maybe Amari Bell at the back there and the wing backs a little bit less. But goodness gracious me, we passed the ball around in front of them for what felt interminable in that first half. Absolutely interminable. And the fullbacks didn't overlap. It was very weird. Harry Clark actually did overlap. But I think that's out of necessity because there's no forward on that side. So we had to sort of overlap Lebo because otherwise you have no width at all. But Chambers doesn't do the same thing with TC on the outside. And it's really, really frustrating. Like, it's not a Luke Chambers comment. But you're asking Tyrese Campbell to do a completely thankless job, which fans quite quickly let him know they don't like the fact that he's doing it, by making it so that he's constantly dealing with 2-on-1s, right? I mean, he could put Damari Gray out there on the left-hand side, and if he's doing 2-on-1s the entire game, he's not going to create anything either, right? Like, can we tone down the criticism just a little bit of saying players aren't this quality or that quality or this, that, or the other? When this is a squad that's not set up in many ways to play to some of the players that we have strengths, right? There's one where TC drops it on the, Miles has got a shot from 18 yards. It's slightly off the side of the, the box. He's It's unlikely to score it, but just hit it. Right? We don't shoot from outside the box unless it's Sonny Carey. So everyone just that we play that's at the bottom of the table, the reason why we struggled the reason why we drew at Ewood Park, the reason why we drew, maybe Ewood Park's an exception actually because we did score twice there. We just had two defensive muck ups. But Oxford, Norwich, and I know Norwich now are flying, but at the time, right? Norwich, Portsmouth, um, why am I forgetting the other one? Leicester, we won actually. West Brom, there we go. West Brom was the one I'm trying to pull out, right? The reason why we struggled at these places is because they sit deep. Even Preston now who are dropping off a bit. QPR who are dropping off. I know they won at Leicester yesterday and are probably safe, but the reason why we struggled at some of these places is that these teams just sit in a low block and they say, come beat us. And sometimes they almost outdo us in the sort of being a bit of a pain in the backside to play against. But we don't have the players to break teams like that down. And so all they need is to get a moment of luck, a moment of magic, a moment of inspiration, whatever it is. And we're not going to break them down because we can't do anything on the ball. So that's what needs to be sort of corrected in the summer. I don't know if with the current squad makeup you can really correct that now. Again, you can have maybe Luke Chambers do a bit more overlapping. But if you do that, then you're leaving yourself really, really exposed down that side. And again, you can see the difference between Amari Bell and Kane Ramsey, right? Kane Ramsey's fitness you trust probably a lot more. And so you let him sort of cover that space. That's why he's so important to the Nathan Jones system. Whereas with Amari Bell, you sort of want to give him a bit of cover so he doesn't have to cover that much ground, not because he can't do it, but because of his injury concerns. But goodness gracious, I mean, the other thing would be to get Doc to drop in, right, and sort of cover that space. But does Doc have the legs to do that? I'm not 100% sure. Good grief, the end of that first half, I think it was summed up by a McDo trying to beat Will Mannion at his near post because Will Mannion just has gone on a walkabout and almost gets beaten from an angle no keeper should be getting beaten from. In the end, he recovers well. Fair play to it. But goodness gracious me, Stephen Henderson's halfway down the touchline at half time to give him a rollicking for it. Yeah, it's just like even players that provide something on Saturday provided next to nothing. We missed Lyndon Dykes. I think that's pretty apparent, but I don't think Liebherr was. I think probably Liebherr was one of our better players on Saturday, to be honest with all of you. So I'd love to sit here and say there was some sort of tactical masterclass from that Bloomfield that meant that Oxford were better than us, but they weren't. I'd love to sit here and say that if we just changed X or Y, we'd be better at playing these bottom sort of sides. There isn't. The squad makeup just isn't there for it. At home, when you've got the crowd kind of roaring you on a little bit, you look at that Preston home game, I think that's winnable, right? You look at probably Bristol City at home, we're in mid-table. We've beaten a lot of those mid-table sides at home, right? And those low, and we've beaten pretty much everybody other than Pompey below us at home, and Leicester, obviously. So, but the reason for that is because then they sit so low in that block, but the crowd sort of pushes it up. And that's why we have so many 1-0 wins against sides like that, because in the end, we're the one getting the moment of inspiration because the crowd is helping a little bit and you can be slightly more expensive at home and the Valley pitch is a little bit larger than a lot of the pitches we're playing on away from home. So the reason we scored 2 at Ewood, I think, partially is because that's an ex-Premier League pitch and actually it's quite wide. That and Blackburn can't defend, but... It's just, and I can say that because I chatted to Mark from the Blackburn and he had that. So I can say it's going from a Blackburn fan. It's not me taking the mickey out of Blackburn. I actually like Blackburn as a club, but it's so frustrating to watch a game like that. It was like watching that West Brom game again, except for at least in the West Brom game, West Brom themselves looked as if they wanted the game. The goal kick from Mannion where Lancashire goes through is dreadful. Kicks above Kelman's head. Why are we firing long balls at Charlie Callum and Tyrese Campbell? That's a tactical thing. I don't think that's a Mannion thing. I think that's a tactical thing. Right? Why are we doing that? They're not going to win it. Stop it. You're just making them both look, feeble. Right? That's not their strong suit. Stop it. Right? Why is Sonny Carey doing half the time he's on the pitch? He's like sort of running around. And sometimes they want to tackle or something, and he drives us up the pitch. And I really appreciate Sonny Carey, but goodness gracious me, there are times where he's just sort of there. right? And I get tens can be pretty mercurial and they're hard sometimes to fit in tactically because they're not great defenders and they don't really want to trap back but they're midfielders so they have to, right? He's a player that I really like, but goodness gracious me, did that not work yet on Saturday? Whatever the tactical arrangement. I mean, Nathan Jones, it was so bad he was basically disowned the performance and said that wasn't the way that I wanted us to play. Um, it's just I don't think there's a fix for it. That's the thing, right? I don't think that there's a tweak that you can make with the squad that we have at the moment that changes that. I mean, February I think helped when he came on. He gave you a little bit more extra width, and I think that helped Tyrese out a little bit. And towards the end of the game, he actually looked better because there was more width. Um, but you can get that same width by having another player overlap. Like at the moment, the problem is that everybody knows Tyrese Campbell is the outball. Put two men on him. If you don't put two men on him, we'll just break through with pace. And if he'd scored against Middlesbrough, we're having a different conversation. But nobody else in that squad can create that chance. That's why he plays. Whether he's good enough or not is a side point to the fact that the manager's gone, I need somebody to do that job. So, do you need three centre backs, for example, in some of these games against some of these teams? Right? Well, yeah, because we keep conceding goals away. Right? So it's immensely frustrating because the thing that helps us against your teams in mid-table, because they can't break you down, or your teams higher up if they don't break you down, is the thing that costs you against teams like this. And unfortunately, I've been saying this since the start of the season. This is why we are where we are, which is at home and overall, we're better against the better sides, and that means that we've been better overall than teams below us, and we're actually good against the teams below us when they come to the Valley. But goodness gracious me, if we don't bring in some players in the summer that can sit on the ball and play the ball around and give you a groundbreaking pass and make life easier for our forwards, we could go out and buy the next Darren Bent. It's not going to matter because nobody's creating chances in that side, and chances are being created that are dropping to the wrong players, right? So you look on that and you go, Harry Clark's overlapping, doing the thing. There's a reason why Harry Clark's getting the chances because he's doing the overlapping, right? But he's constantly left free because nobody fears Harry Clark putting the ball in the back of your net. That extra defender is currently dealing with number 7, who is getting pelters from every section of the Charlton Athletic fan base, even when Amari Bell plays him a hospital pass. Like, that's not to defend him. It's just to say that the reason why we look the way that we do in terms of disorganisation or the rest of it's actually squad makeup. And you've got to expect that. We came up via the playoffs. Right? Like, it's clear we came up a year early. Two of the players that dragged us out of League One are both on the injury table, right? In Luke Berry and Matty Godden, and neither of them have really impacted championship games when they've played. Right? So you're relying on the kids to make the step up, and some of the veterans haven't done it. Right? Not everyone's a Lloyd Jones and looks comfortable stepping up. Not everyone's a Kane Ramsey. And even Kane Ramsey's had his ups and downs at times this year. Connor Coventry's had his ups and downs. Right? So the kids are going to have their ups and downs. It's natural, right? So I'm just immensely frustrated, I think, at times. It's frustrating to watch, and I get why people get frustrated because I'm frustrated. But it's frustrating to hear the complaints as well, because as much as everybody has a right to an opinion, sometimes it just ends up being, it's like, do we have to criticize the same 3 players, right? It's not changing anything. And we can't change it till the summer. Do I think that we need to go and get a better forward? Yeah, I do. But do I think that better forward is going to get the same scapegoating everybody else is getting up front? Yeah, I do. Why? Because you have to go and fix the midfield in behind it. And I banged on and on and on at the beginning of the season about not having a left wing back and why that was causing problems. Well, look, we're a pretty standard championship side with a left wing back in there. It's the same with the midfield here. If you want to make that step forward, you've got to go and get midfielders that can play on the ball, because you've got to find somebody who can play in between the lines, because at the moment we have to play hoofball to players who are 5'10" or whatever the heck. Well, let's try coming 6 foot, maybe on a good day, shorter than that. I think he's 5'9". Tyrese Campbell's about 5'10", right? These are not players that are going to win the ball in the air. So you either got to spin it around them, which is a more difficult pass to play, or you've got to knock it over their heads. But Oxford have Kieran Brown back there, right? Kieran Brown's an excellent centre-back defensive, except when he's giving penalties away. Right? If you're going to play it onto his head, it's a bit like playing it onto Lloyd Jones's head. Look at Kieran Brown's stats; they're excellent. So, and I haven't even talked about the blooming refereeing decision on the Oxford penalty, which is just so frustrating because it was nonsense in real time, right? And I get it; people will be sticklers about the rule book, and we don't get the penalty we were given, despite the fact the rule book would tell you that is a penalty. He was pulling his shirt halfway off. Right? If he doesn't give Oxford their first penalty, because I think he probably realizes he's made a mistake, right? And he's evened it out, basically. But that's not a penalty. And the weird thing was Oxford showed it on the screen. They showed a replay. I thought that was banned. But I think it's because they're just showing the Sky feed. I've never seen a club do that before, actually, where they're showing all the replays from all the contentious refereeing decisions. It's a bit like having a VAR that the referee can't use. Really, really strange setup. And also on the world's smallest screen that no one can see that backs up onto a car park. But we just, it's such a bad decision. It doesn't really clatter him. He knocks into him. Like, if I'm going to be really fair to the referee, I'll say he knocked into him. Right? It's still not a penalty according to the rule book. But then again, what is a penalty anymore with handball and all the rest of it? I don't know if I know the rules to football anymore, and I sit here and talk about it twice a week. Our penalty, yeah, it was a penalty. He does pull it. He shouldn't be pulling Kieran. But Kieran Brown's a player I really like, actually. If they do go down, I'd be very interested in Curry at left wing back, and I think everyone's interested in Brannigan, but whether he leaves or not, I'm not sure. But definitely Kieran Brown at centre back, left footed. That's a player I think that you can pick from the bones of the team to get relegated. But that was a really stupid decision by him. He pulls Lloyd Jones' shirt. You can see it from the away end. His shirt's halfway off his body. It's a clear penalty. Their penalty from Brannigan. I mean, it's Brannigan. You knew he was going to score. He doesn't miss penalties. One of the best sort of dead ball specialists in the division. And then you've got R1 Joey Cummins, slightly scuffs it, I think. But who cares? It went in. And he's got 6 goals. And, so maybe it's not the worst return. I think he's a player that will hopefully grow in confidence as we get further into the season. Anyway, that's my run on the actual football. I'm gonna have a little bit of a conversation about the blooming seating in there, and it's something that bothers me. You can skip like 2 minutes if you're someone that doesn't want to hear this, but if anyone that goes to away games normally, you'll know this. We have to come to a decision as to whether we're going to enforce seat numbers or not. Because this thing at the moment where they basically half enforce it is a miserable experience for everybody. It causes chaos. And almost nobody ends up in their seat anyway. So why are you forcing us to go up into sections that you're not going to enforce that people need to be there? One person doesn't sit in their seat and refuses to move, the whole thing gets messed up. Because then the person next to them goes to a different seat. And then so stop it, because it's not working. Right, and I get it. They're implementing restrictions and whatever to stop fans doing anything, right? But it doesn't work, and it just causes more aggro than if you just didn't enforce that, right? Either fully enforce it and say you have to sit in that seat, or don't enforce it. But don't do this middle ground thing, because it's not working, and it's really annoying, especially in a ground like that. And Wrexham's is the same one. Where they're really, really tight, right? Loftus Road QPR is the same problem, right? When they're really, really tight, you can't just easily get out of a seat if it isn't yours, and they don't really tell you where your seat is. They're like, it's somewhere up there, right? So I'm not one of those that you're in my seat brigade, right? I don't think that a weigh-in should be structured like that, because it can be difficult to get tickets with your mates and all the rest of it. And I go with a group of friends, and it's not always easy to find the seat next to whatever it is, and it's confusing, right? Trying to find the right section. Your mates picked a section, you pick something different, whatever it is. Not everybody buys it at the same time. But in the same way, if they're going to enforce sections, they might as well enforce seats, because it's just and then by the time you get to half time, they're not even enforcing sections anymore. So I don't know what the regulation is in some of these grounds that they're making you do it, but I've seen people, and I've done it myself. You climb across 5 or 6 rows to get to where you actually want to be, and no one bothers you. But when you're down there, they're sending you to the right row. So I just think it's a conversation football needs to have. because I think it's just causing more aggro than is necessary. Hopefully, as we get better as a the football team, we'll have more and more of these sort of sold out away ends. Um, but some of the problems with the sold out away ends, I think you saw yesterday, and I really don't want to go back to that ground. I don't like it. It's horrible. It's three stands. It's got a car park behind it. You can't even say hit that into Rose Ed because you have to say set into car parking space V. Because there is no Rose Ed. The ground sucks the atmosphere out. It's we never get anything there. We did get something, to be fair, on Saturday, but it's not a fun experience. It's just a naff place to watch football. Um, and so it's one of those where if I had a choice, I don't want it to come back and bite me, but that's an experience I'd very much like to not do next season, and hopefully for a very long time, if ever again. Maybe when their new one's built and go to Oxford Parkway, but it's not even really Oxford United's fault in many ways. I know it's a corrupt owner and all the rest of it. We're in town chatting to a long-time fan who was saying that he doesn't go to games. He was a season ticket holder for years, but doesn't go to games anymore because he has to go to that horrible place and he doesn't want to go there and all the rest of it. And he feels sorry for away fans. So, it's not like an Oxford United fan problem. It's a wider structural problem and an issue to do with the cost, obviously, of real estate in Oxford and the cost of running football clubs and building infrastructure of that size. Right, so let's go to the comments and say hello to a few people. I've got Sam going, evening. Hi, Sam. How you doing? Robert saying, terrible journey, terrible game, but definitely nice, but a terribly nice point in the end. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Tommy, a point is all that matters, and the Norwich next one up at home at least. Yeah, we've got 2 straight home games. So we have Norwich, then we have obviously the international break, and then it's first game back is Bristol City. I should have sort of said in that sort of I said in that long dialogue um, you just need to win one of these 8 games and you're pretty much there. I think Nathan Jones was saying, look, we won on Saturday and gotten to 50, it would have been job done. I think that's kind of they'll have statisticians who are actually doing that math for them. But I've always thought about 50 should be okay. Even with the sort of uplift they're talking about. I know last year Luton and Plymouth finished strong to get kind of within I think they both got to 49. But even then, you're looking at they both went. Luton went down in goal difference. Plymouth went down by a couple of points. But we're above where I think Plymouth finished last year. We're on the exact same number of points, so we just need a point. We just need a couple of points here. One win at home, we should be about that. I don't know if it's going to be at Norwich against Norwich because Norwich are a very, very good side and a very, very good run. And I bring up a stat that I read earlier, which blew my mind yesterday. When did we last get a point at Oxford? I don't know about a point, but we last won there in 1998, and it wasn't that stadium. That's how horrifyingly long it's been since we won Oxford. A lot of that's because we spent time in the Premier League, and they haven't really been above League One for a long time. So we haven't played them that many times. But it's one of those records, much like Millwall, where it just doesn't seem to ever end. Obviously, both sides ran out of steam after such a busy week. Yeah, and the travel. And I moaned about this on Thursday or whatever it was, about distance to travel. It's absolutely ridiculous to send us to the Riverside on a Wednesday night and then say you're going to go play the lunchtime kickoff on a Saturday in Oxford. If we and they stayed at home, so they didn't, that they were fresher than us. And once you get to about 60 minutes, that freshness, that freshness matters, right? It really kicks in. So that last sort of half an hour, you're playing on, you've got a lot of lactic acid in the muscles, and you're tired and you're sore and all the rest of it, and that's where I think we did do well to show some heart to really push through that. And there were players that finished that game looking absolutely knackered, who played either half an hour or close to the full game. I mean, Coventry played 90 minutes on Wednesday, 90 minutes again. So didn't Harry Clark play the whole game as well. So yeah, it was it's frustrating the scheduling has conspired the way that it has. Paul saying hello, how are you doing? Paul saying TC is human too. He is human too. And my one thing with TC is that he's one of ours. He's one of our kids. Like, do we have to? I think there's a difference sometimes between criticizing a footballer, and I did it on Thursday. I said he was absolutely naff on Thursday. I don't think he was great yesterday, to be really, really clear. But I don't think anyone was great yesterday. So expecting him to be good, I think, is a pretty silly ask, to be honest with you. Sometimes it feels like that. That headline after Beckham got sent off against Argentina with some fans when they sort of go, 10 lions and one stupid boy. Right, really? Like, no, you win as a team, you lose as a team. Sometimes you have players that aren't as good, sometimes players that are adapting, sometimes players aren't gonna have good games. Like calm it. I think would be my thing on it is that TC's out there to do very specific tactical things that may bother people, and they may not want you to have to do those specific tactical things, and you may not do those specific tactical things right? But I think the issue is that I would say is it's that was going to basically be February out front to give you the pace because you take TC out of that team and we don't have any speed whatsoever. Right against Middlesbrough, it didn't really matter in the end, but even then we created chance on the break because of that speed. We should have. I mean, Kelman's not slow. If we started Kelman yesterday, I wouldn't have been upset. But asking Kelman to start after a 12:30, I mean, Miles fought through it. Fair play to him, but I think we ask a lot sometimes from footballers, and you just go, you can't call players crap and then expect to finish, the top 8 or whatever it is. Like, it can't be all things to all people, and I think that's why I'm in a spot where I'm pretty satisfied with where we are. I mean, I think probably the reason they didn't do an announcement on them picking up TC's option for another year is the amount of abuse that would be in the comment section from people. The Charlton Athletic hashtag from yesterday was, I thought, completely ridiculous. But, it's just my opinion, and people have the right to criticise and, say what they want to say. But, I think we have to be really, really careful sometimes with criticism and how we phrase it. And there's a difference between, saying this has to be better or that has to be better and blaming someone for someone else playing them a crap ball. So anyway, that's what I'm going to say on that subject. Yeah, I mean, as I was saying before, Norwich come down on Saturday. I don't expect that win that we need to come from Norwich, if I'm totally honest. They're on a fantastic run. They do have injuries everywhere. And they actually play a game, even the game at Carrow Road, they sort of dominated the ball but did very, very little with it. I think Kaminsky had one save to make first half, and then they got quite lucky with the Macomber finish. They were pretty dominant, don't get me wrong. But it wasn't like they created loads and loads and loads of chances in that game. We played very, very poorly. But I think actually they may suit the way that we play at home a little bit. Bristol City, I'd very much be looking at as to try and get the win and just get that done. Because the longer you wait, the more tense it gets. So I think we're going to get the win at Watford. Probably not. Although, again, Watford have very little to play for. And as I say, you do have the voucher to cash at Hillsborough, but I'd much rather cash that voucher when it's basically a friendly. And actually, I'd very much like it if we were safe to be able to take some of the younger kids up there. Sounds really harsh to Wednesday, but Wednesday have a team of children. I wouldn't mind, maybe bringing Alan Mwamba up with us, up to Hillsborough and seeing if I can get him half an hour in a game like that against players that are, they're not the standard, some of them, but players that are probably you can sort of adjust and kind of get that championship experience of playing in one of those big stadiums and all the rest of it. But I'd like to do that if we're, if we're safe or we're tracking towards safe. I think we will be by that point anyway. But yeah, I mean, most of the games now are at home. I think it's 5-3, 5 home games, 3 away games, and one of the away games is Hillsborough. So, you can get 3 draws, to be honest with you, if you want. You get to the same place. It's basically 51. You're at 51. You'll be absolutely fine. I mean, Leicester are a bit of a mess. Oxford, maybe. Blackburn got their customary win at the Den, which is always funny. But do I expect them to kick on from that? I'm not so sure. Although I do think O'Neill will keep them up. We'll see what happens with Portsmouth. They lose to Derby on Monday. Things get very interesting all of a sudden for them because I think they're still on 40, aren't they? And I think the relegation zone is only 1 point. Is it 1 point behind them or 2 points behind them now? Portsmouth. 1 second. I do have the thing that I've got. Technology. We've got. Yeah, they are on 40. Yeah, they're only 1 point above the relegation zone as it stands. West Brom are only a point above. They did play well against Hull, to be fair, West Brom. But I wanted to bring up this stat just before I end the pod because I thought this was absolutely wild. I sent this to Paul yesterday. But on the 5th of January, we were on 29 points, sat in 7th and 18th, which is where we are now and probably where we're going to finish. Preston North End was sat in 3rd on 43. If we win this weekend with the way the fixtures are set up, we can go above 50. We can get to 50 before Preston can, before Preston will. which if you'd said that to someone on the 5th of January would have been absolutely wild. Right. Now I get it that they are safe, Preston. Don't get me wrong. I can't see anyone getting that high unless they just lose all 8 games. I don't think they're going to do that. But someone asked Thierry Small how that's gone for him. That is very, very, very funny. And I'm sure not from me because I understand it. It sounds a little bit like his girlfriend was up there and he'd had his heart set on that move and all the rest of it. I'm not gonna give him too much, but he's gonna get a lot of one greedy, you know what, on his return to the Valley in a couple of weeks, I'm pretty sure. Right, there'll be no pod midweek, and I won't be on the Chronicles on Wednesday to the preview. I've got something on Wednesday evening, but I will see you all on Sunday after Norwich. Oh no, I won't see you on Sunday after Norwich. How am I going to do that? I'll figure it out. I may have to do a pre-recording for the post thing in Norwich because I'm going on holiday after. So I might have to do something on Sunday morning and quickly upload it. But we'll figure it out. There'll be something post Norwich. But I hope you all have a very good rest of your Sunday evening. It's nice and early. We'll leave it here, and I will see you all after the Norwich game. All right, bye for now.